Why did Satan want the body of Moses so much? It's a shocking revelation hidden between the lines of the Bible. Why did God's great enemy, Satan, have so much interest in the body of one of the greatest prophets of all time? The Epistle of Jude, one of the shortest books of the New Testament, brings to light an intriguing event: the dispute between the Archangel Michael and Satan over the body of Moses. Jude 1 verse 9. The brief mention of the dispute in Jude 1 verse 9 states, "But when Michael the Archangel, contending with the devil, disputed about the body of Moses, he did not dare to pronounce a reviling judgment against him, but said, 'The Lord rebuke you.'" This concise passage raises more questions than answers. Why was Satan interested in the body of Moses? What was at stake in this dispute? And why is this event mentioned only here in the entire Bible? To better understand the significance of this dispute, we need to delve into the context of the Epistle of Jude. The author writes to warn Christians about false teachers who infiltrated the church, bringing perverse doctrines and leading many to stray from the faith. Jude 1 verse 4. Jude uses examples from the Old Testament to illustrate God's judgment on those who rebel against him, such as the unbelieving Israelites, Jude 1 verse 5, the fallen angels, Jude 1 verse 6, and Sodom and Gomorrah, Jude 1 verse 7. It is in this context of rebellion and judgment that Jude mentions the dispute between Michael and Satan. He uses this example to show the audacity of the false teachers who blaspheme the glorious ones, Jude 1 verse 8. In contrast to the respectful attitude of Michael, who did not dare to pronounce judgment against Satan but appealed to the Lord's authority, Jude 1 verse 9. Although the mention of the dispute is brief, it reveals some important truths. First, it reminds us that there is a constant spiritual battle occurring in the unseen world, where angels faithful to God oppose the forces of evil led by Satan, Ephesians 6 verse 12. Second, it shows that even a powerful angel like Michael recognizes God's supreme authority and does not act on his own but trusts in the Lord's judgment. Daniel 10 verses 13 and 21. 12 verse 1. Revelation 12 verse 7. Furthermore, the uniqueness of this mention in the Bible suggests that there is more to this story than we can understand at first glance. Why is the dispute over Moses' body significant enough to be included in the Epistle of Jude? What implications does this dispute have for our understanding of spiritual warfare and God's purposes? To answer these questions, we need to delve into the identities of the characters involved: the Archangel Michael and the prophet Moses. Who are they, and what is their role in the story of redemption? What light can their participation in this dispute shed on Satan's intentions and God's plans? Who is the Archangel Michael? To better understand the dispute between Michael and Satan over the body of Moses, we need to delve into the identity of this powerful archangel. Who is Michael, and what is his role in the heavenly hierarchy? The name Michael means "who is like God" in Hebrew, a rhetorical question that emphasizes God's incomparability. This name suggests that Michael is a defender of divine supremacy and sovereignty, someone who fights against those who oppose God and usurp his authority. In the Bible, Michael is mentioned by name in 5 passages: Daniel 10 verses 13 and 21, 12 verse 1, Jude 1 verse 9, and Revelation 12 verse 7. In these passages, he is described as one of the chief princes, Daniel 10 verse 13, the great prince who protects God's people, Daniel 12 verse 1, the archangel who disputes with Satan, Jude 1 verse 9, and the commander of the heavenly armies who fights against the dragon and his angels, Revelation 12 verse 7. These references indicate that Michael occupies a prominent position in the angelic hierarchy. He is one of the archangels, a term that means chief angel or leader of angels. Although the Bible does not specify how many archangels exist, Jewish and Christian tradition generally recognizes 7 archangels based on passages like Revelation 8 verse 2 and Tobit 12:15, a deuterocanonical book. As an archangel, Michael has authority over other angels and leads the heavenly armies in battle against the forces of evil. In Daniel chapter 10, he is described as coming to the aid of another angel who had been hindered by a demonic prince of Persia, Daniel 10 verse 13. This suggests that Michael has the power to intervene in spiritual conflicts and remove obstacles in the unseen world. Besides his role as a heavenly warrior, Michael is also portrayed as a protector of God's people. In Daniel 12 verse 1, he is described as the one who stands up for the children of your people during a time of great tribulation. This indicates that Michael has a special interest in the well-being of God's people and acts on their behalf in times of crisis. This protective function of Michael is also evident in Jude 1 verse 9, where he disputes with Satan over the body of Moses. Although the details of this dispute are not explicit, we can infer that Michael was acting to protect Moses' body from some evil scheme of Satan. As we will see later, Moses' body had special significance, and Michael stood up to defend it from the enemy's malicious intentions. In Revelation 12 verses 7 to 9, Michael and his angels fight against the dragon, Satan, and his rebellious angels, casting them out of heaven. This passage portrays God's ultimate victory over the forces of evil and highlights Michael's crucial role in this cosmic confrontation. As a powerful angelic leader and defender of God's purposes, Michael would not allow Satan to use Moses' body for his evil schemes. He stood up to protect the integrity of this faithful servant and to ensure that God's plans were not thwarted. As we deepen our understanding of these elements, the dispute between Michael and Satan becomes increasingly significant and revealing of the mysteries of God's purposes. The importance of Moses in Israel's history. To understand why Moses' body was significant enough to be disputed by Michael and Satan, we need to consider the importance of this man in the history of the people of Israel and in God's redemptive plan. Moses is one of the most prominent figures in the Old Testament. He was chosen by God to free the Israelites from slavery in Egypt and lead them to the Promised Land. From his miraculous birth, Exodus 2 verses 1 to 10, to his death at the gates of Canaan, Deuteronomy 34 verses 1 to 8, Moses' life was marked by divine intervention and a unique relationship with the Lord. One of the most outstanding moments of Moses' life was his encounter with God in the burning bush, Exodus 3:1-4:17. There, God revealed himself to Moses as I Am, the self-existent and eternal God who had made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God commissioned Moses to confront Pharaoh and demand the release of his people, promising to be with him and enable him to perform mighty miracles. Under Moses' leadership, God executed 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt, demonstrating his supreme power over the Egyptian gods and forcing Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. Exodus 7-12. At the crucial moment, God instituted the Passover, a perpetual memorial of his people's deliverance that pointed to the final redemption through Christ, the Lamb of God. Exodus 12 verses 1-28. John 1 verse 29. 1 Corinthians 5 verse 7. After leaving Egypt, Moses continued to play a vital role as a mediator between God and his people. On Mount Sinai, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments and other laws that would form the basis of the Mosaic covenant. Exodus 19-24. Moses spent 40 days in God's presence, receiving detailed instructions about the tabernacle, the priesthood, and sacrifices. Exodus 25-31. He became God's voice to the people, conveying his will and interceding for them throughout the decades of wandering in the desert. Moses faced countless challenges, from the people's rebellion and idolatry to threats from enemy nations. In every crisis, he turned to God for guidance and provision, and the Lord responded with mercy and power. Exodus 15:22-17:7. Numbers 11-20. Moses also repeatedly interceded for the people when they sinned, pleading for God's forgiveness and offering to bear the judgment in their place. Exodus 32 verses 30-32. Numbers 14:11-19. Near the end of his life, Moses delivered his final legacy to the people in the form of the book of Deuteronomy. In it, he recalled God's mighty works, renewed the covenant, and exhorted Israel to love and obey the Lord with all their heart. Deuteronomy 6 verses 4-9. 30:15-20. Moses also prophesied about the coming of a prophet like himself, whom the people should listen to, a prophecy fully realized in Jesus Christ. Deuteronomy 18 verses 15-19. Acts 3 verses 22-23, 7:37. Moses' death on Mount Nebo was a significant moment in Israel's history. Deuteronomy 34 verses 1-8. Although he did not enter the Promised Land due to an act of disobedience, Numbers 20:7-12. God honored him by allowing him to see the land from afar. The Lord himself buried Moses in an unknown place, marking the end of an era and the transition of leadership to Joshua. Moses' legacy as a deliverer, mediator, and lawgiver had a profound impact on Israel's identity and their understanding of God's covenant. The New Testament reveals that Moses' life and ministry were a foreshadowing of the greater deliverance, mediation, and covenant that Jesus Christ would accomplish. John 1:17. Hebrews 3:1-6. 8:1-13. In light of Moses' pivotal role in God's plan, it is not surprising that Satan would have an interest in his body. Satan, as the adversary of God and his people, seeks to distort and destroy what is holy and sacred. He may have sought to use Moses' body to deceive the Israelites, perhaps by promoting idolatry or creating a false shrine. Whatever Satan's intentions, the fact that Michael intervened to prevent them indicates that this was a matter of spiritual significance. Now that we have explored the roles of both Michael and Moses, we are better equipped to consider the reasons behind Satan's interest in Moses' body and the spiritual implications of this mysterious dispute. Power and grace. Defiling his body would be a symbolic attack on God's own work and character, an attempt to tarnish his reputation and question his ability to protect and honor those who serve him. This desire for desecration would reflect Satan's rebellious and evil nature as a fallen angel who rebelled against God. Isaiah 14:12-15. Ezekiel 28:12-19. Satan is in constant warfare against the Lord and his people. He seeks to undermine God's work in every possible way, whether by tempting believers to sin, 1 Chronicles 21:1, Luke 22:31, opposing the spread of the gospel, 2 Corinthians 4:4, 1 Thessalonians 2:18, or raising persecution against the church, Revelation 2:10, 12:13-17. Defiling Moses' body would be just another expression of Satan's relentless hostility against God. Finally, it's possible that Satan wanted to use Moses' body in some way to hinder God's plans for the nation of Israel. As we've seen, Moses played a crucial role in forming Israel as God's covenant people, delivering his law to them and guiding them to the edge of the promised land. If Satan could interfere with Moses' legacy or create confusion around his death and burial, he could sow doubt and disunity among the Israelites, weakening their faith and commitment to the covenant. This strategy would align with Satan's ongoing efforts to frustrate God's redemptive purposes. Throughout Scripture, we see the enemy attempting to prevent the fulfillment of divine promises, whether through the persecution of the patriarchs, Genesis 12:10-20, 20:1-18, the Israelites' slavery in Egypt, Exodus 1:8-22, or threats to the Messianic line, 2 Chronicles 21:4-7, 22:10-2. Attacking Moses' legacy would be another attempt by Satan to sabotage God's plan and prevent his people from fulfilling their destiny. Satan's audacity in confronting an angel of God. The dispute between Michael and Satan over Moses' body is significant not only for what it reveals about the enemy's evil intentions, but also for the shocking audacity Satan demonstrates in directly confronting a powerful angel of God. To understand the magnitude of this audacity, we need to consider the nature and history of Satan's rebellion against God. Originally created as an anointed cherub, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty, Ezekiel 28:12-15, Lucifer, as Satan was known before his fall, became filled with pride and aspired to be like the Most High, Isaiah 14:12-14. He led an angelic rebellion against God, resulting in his expulsion from heaven along with a third of the angels, Revelation 12:3-4, 7-9. Since then, Satan has been engaged in an unrelenting campaign against God and his people. He is described as the God of this age, 2 Corinthians 4:4, the prince of the power of the air, Ephesians 2:2, and the accuser of the brethren, Revelation 12:10. His goal is to steal, kill, and destroy, John 10:10, opposing God's work and seeking to divert people from truth and righteousness. In this context of stubborn rebellion, Satan's audacity in confronting Michael over Moses' body becomes even more shocking. As a fallen angel, Satan is aware of the power and authority of the angels faithful to God. He knows he has no strength to prevail against them in a direct confrontation, as evidenced by his defeat at the hands of Michael and the heavenly hosts, Revelation 12 verses 7-8. Yet, by disputing over Moses' body, Satan demonstrates surprising audacity by directly challenging God's will and the authority of his angelic servants. He not only seeks to defile the body of one of God's greatest prophets, but also dares to resist Michael, the archangel charged with protecting God's people and defending his purposes. This audacity reflects Satan's arrogant and rebellious nature. Although he knows he is destined for defeat and eternal judgment, Matthew 25 verse 41, Revelation 20 verse 10, he continues to stubbornly oppose God and attack his people. He is driven by an irrational hatred of all that is good, true, and holy, and will stop at nothing to corrupt and destroy God's work. The dispute over Moses' body also highlights Satan's willingness to exploit any opportunity to advance his evil agenda. He is always seeking gaps or weaknesses he can use to influence, tempt, or attack God's people, whether through subtle temptations, 1 Chronicles 21 verse 1, relentless accusations, Job 1 verses 6-12, 2:1-7, or direct attacks, Luke 22 verse 3, Acts 5 verse 3. Satan is constantly plotting and scheming against the faithful. In the face of the enemy's audacity and stubbornness, the example of the Archangel Michael becomes even more instructive. Although he faced a provocative situation and a powerful adversary, Michael did not resort to arrogant accusations or impulsive attacks. Instead, he appealed to God's supreme authority, declaring, "The Lord rebuke you," Jude 1 verse 9. This response teaches us valuable lessons about how we should deal with the enemy's attacks. While we are called to resist the devil, James 4 verse 7, 1 Peter 5 verse 9, we should not do so in our own strength or wisdom. Like Michael, we must trust in God's authority and power, invoking his name and standing firm in his truth. Now, we will explore further the nature of the spiritual battle between good and evil and the lessons we can draw from Michael's example and other biblical characters. We will see how, despite the enemy's audacity and stubbornness, we can have confidence in God's ultimate victory and in the protection he offers to all who trust in him.